Welcome back to the Fairway Performance Podcast. Today we've got another repeat guest, Mr. John Weir from Mental Golf Time. How are you today, John? And how long has it been since we spoke last? We were just talking about this before.
I'm doing wonderful. I'm excited to be back, and thanks for having me. I think it's been about a year. We've been apart from each other, and it's great to be back here chatting with you on your pod.
Yeah, man. Well, lots happened that year. I've done 2 international moves, and you've obviously had a whole lot going on with MGT. So we'll dive into some of that stuff soon. But the first question I wanted to ask, and to kick things off, like just to roll straight into it, is, and I know this can be a bit loaded, but what do you feel is the most important for golfers to be focusing on, the physical aspects of their games or their mental aspects of their games?
So my answer might surprise you a bit. I actually think it needs to be both all the time. I don't really think that there's a separation, and I think that's where a pitfall a lot of athletes run into, especially golfers, because they think you can separate technical performance in your physical body from your mind. So like players say, well, I'm going to work on my technique, and once I feel good with that, then I'll begin pursuing mental performance. It needs to be something that needs to be trained simultaneously. And here's why. It's because you could be putting in all that great work on your game, and you need to. I'm not a mental coach that poo-poos practice or says like, hey, just visualize and you're going to be swinging like Tiger or Jason Day. That simply isn't going to happen. However, your mental performance and your mental performance skills will determine what type of performance you bring out that day on the course. And so training it simultaneously is really the key to have the best development. We can't just train one or the other. And we see this pitfall, right, Sean? I mean, people have a really good swing, then they get to the course, and yet they struggle to score. And yet you see other people that don't have as nearly developed swing, but they go to the course and they score really well. So some people have technical skills, others have performance skills. Ideally, we're working on both simultaneously.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just to add to that, a lot of clients that I work with, obviously, they're pursuing the physical route. So they've either, invested time in swing coaching or into doing some training and building their own training programs or mobility plans or something. And they're finding it's not working. So they're like, look, what's the answer to this? They come to me, we get an assessment, figure out exactly what's going on, and then we can build a plan which is going to support that. And I often talk about, with the just purely physical side, we've got the physical capability of your bodies, and then we've also, and like how much it can lift, how fast you can do burpees and run and all that sort of stuff, the physical attributes, athleticism. And then we've also got how that translates to the golf swing and your actual technical proficiency in the golf swing. I love it when people come to me and they're working with me and with a swing coach, because that just merges so well. As their body starts to move better, their swing coach has just got this piece of clay that's like more moldable into a better swing, essentially. So imagine if you had that, but on the mental side. So that's exactly where you and Mental Golf Type obviously come in. So in hearing me talk about that or use that analogy, how do you feel the mental piece also fits within that?
Sure. So like you said, with the body, I mean, everybody has different capabilities. So if I can't make a turn like some of these 20-year-old players, I might not be able to be really pursuing that swing, right? So it all depends. But it doesn't mean I can have to play bad golf. I could build something biomechanically around my body, my attributes, my athleticism. In mental performance, it's the same thing. So many times mentally, you look at all the old books, they try to clump us all into this universal model and say, this is the one way to be able to achieve peak performance. And I've really kind of pushed back on that over the years. What we see commonality-wise is people in the zone are in relaxed brainwave states. But what relaxes your mind might be a lot different than what relaxes me. And then also the number one thing universally preventing people from performing well or getting the most out of even their physical capabilities is stress. And again, it goes back to that question, well, what stresses you out might be a lot different than me. So we've developed Mental Golf Type as a way to do that assessment mentally. So we essentially have a mental fitting, kind of like you would go through a golf fitting or the physical assessment of your attributes or athleticism. We have that mentally. And what most people haven't realized is our brains have 4 facets of our personality that are built in, and essentially we have a right and a left hand for each. One is a dominant strength, like using your dominant hand to sign your name, and one is an inferior preference, which, believe it or not, we default into when we're stressed. So what we do is we help you to highlight what your natural innate strengths are. Because when you leverage your game around what you do great naturally and the things you're already producing things on those successful days, When you learn that these are your strengths and the things to key in on, your brain relaxes, you get more out of your physical capabilities. And on the stress side, that I don't teach universally because some of those strategies might actually put you into stress. And why is stress such a bad thing? Is because whenever we're experiencing a real or imagined threat, our brain secretes cortisol, and there's a lot of studies and science out there on this. But what it's doing to your golf swing is the cortisol is affecting your motor cortex. So it's starting to suppress or limit the part of your brain that's responsible for coordinating your movements, running all your coordinated synchronistic muscle motions and patterns in your golf swing. And again, what's going to stress a player is actually very predictable based on personality. So what we do with our assessment is we determine which of the 16 different mental golf types you are. This reveals your innate strengths. It reveals your predictable patterns of stress. And our goal isn't to teach you new. It's basically teaching you actually what you do. Like, so on your great days, these are your patterns. These are what you were doing to produce the success. And then whenever we're struggling, we show you specifically what those patterns are or how you're using your mind or those inferior preferences that are holding you back. Literally just making a shift like this will unleash physical performance. For one, just real quick example, if you're an extroverted person like myself, I process and organize my thoughts much better out loud. I direct my mental energy and feel more engaged and involved when I'm verbalizing and putting my energy out into the environment. So when I'm playing really well, I'm probably talking to you like, Sean, I'll watch this. It's going to be a nice little bleedy cut right off here, and it's going to drip over there. And I get that picture and I step up and hit it. But what happens predictably with me as an extrovert when I get stressed? I go quiet. I start taking that conversation, it flips internal. I withdraw from the action, and literally my performance, because of that stress now, my swing changes. I'm not getting the same execution. And it could just be as simple to change it by just for me verbalizing. I caddy for a guy who's an introvert. And if I wasn't aware that that was his primary way of dealing with his mental energy, and introverts, they prefer to conserve their energy. They direct it more to their inner world of thoughts, feelings, experiences, and they like to process everything internally first before putting out an answer. So you can imagine the conflict if we walked up to a shot and I started talking too much there. I'm going to interrupt his thought process. He's not going to be able to really formulate the right type of answer. Tiger's an introvert too, and what do we see whenever they get stressed, Sean? They get more expressive. So they may lash out. You might see a club slam. You might see a choice word or two thrown out there and a lot more expression. And when I'm seeing my guy doing that, it's just a reminder to go, hey, let's get within ourselves. Why don't you return back to your breathing? Why don't you take a moment to get quiet and recenter? And again, for him, that can make that shift that quick in his performance and the way his physical body is moving shot by shot. So that's kind of how we dive into it at a very specific, personalized level.
Yeah, and I love it. Like going through the test that you have online, that free test that anyone can do. If you're listening, I highly recommend you do that, even if that's the only thing that you do from mental golf type and you don't pursue anything else. That alone is worth it for the help that you can get from it. And just, you don't know what you don't know, or, it hasn't been highlighted to you. So if it's highlighted to you and shone back in your face, it's your own fault for not listening to the advice from it. But for me, when we talked last, I'm not going to go right into it, but essentially I learned that I was an ENTJ, which I'd done with Myers-Briggs test before, but I learned that it was like 5% or 2% or something. A very small percentage of the population is like us, like extroverted and the other things. But I found out like it's the reason why when I'm playing well, I'm like talking to a caddy if I'm playing in like a competition, like a men's pennant event or something like this, representing my club, or if I'm playing with friends and I'm like, hey, watch this, like I'm going to hit this shot and stuff. Like I actually convert and I actually do what I'm like saying I'm going to do, because I thrive in that situation versus the days that I'm not playing well, I am, hitting a club on the ground or talking at myself. What did you hit that shot for? A few choice words, that sort of dialogue is going on rather than, putting it out to the world. What are some of the other pieces? Like obviously I just said ENTJ. What are some of the NTJ parts of it, or the opposites to that? Let's talk the opposite to what I am, because most people are that, I feel.
Sure. So we can just briefly go through it. So in our level 1 program, I encourage you, everybody, please go to and take our free assessment, mentalgolftype.com. It takes just a couple minutes. It's really fun. And we give you a bunch of free lessons and things like that too, for just taking the assessment. And then you can come back, listen to this portion of the program, because then you can dive in and learn a lot more. So 4 main things we're measuring in that quick assessment. One, we're determining mental energy, which we talked about. This is either extroverted or introverted. Again, one of them is a dominant strength and the other is going to be something we default to when we get stressed. The next thing we look at is our focus or perception. So believe it or not, our brains have two different styles of focusing. We could be sensing oriented, which is looking more at facts, details, using our five senses to gather information, things we can touch, taste, feel, smell. Or we could be activating our intuition. And this is more looking at patterns and concepts and how things interconnect and theories. And intuitives tend to be a lot more big picture oriented, and sensors tend to be a lot more detail oriented. Again, this plays a huge role in golf. I mean, we hear focus all the time, but again, until mental golf type starts to come in and help us to narrow down the conversation, it's very intangible. It's like, oh, I'm losing focus, or I don't know how to focus effectively. And again, if we're taking generic advice, sometimes it could be counterproductive for our game. For example, there's a common line out there, aim small, miss small. Now, if you're a sensing player, that is a really effective strategy. Sensors, when they're focusing and getting specific, they're looking at facts and details, things like about the lie, the way the wind is, and they're getting a lot of clarity like that and specific target. That helps them. Their brains work really well in a linear step-by-step way. So the clearer they get, it's kind of like following a recipe now, and things get really comfortable. If I try to apply that in my game as an intuitive, I struggled. So the more I got specific, the more that took me into my swing mechanics, and I ended up guiding it and trying to be really perfect. And intuitives actually play better when we broaden our focus. So by expanding it and playing it more to zones, and Mike Bender was really instrumental in helping me to really find that out and elicit that too. Mike Bender down in Florida, I mean, he's a prolific teacher. Everybody's legendary. Everybody's probably heard of him, but he's an intuitive coach, and his range is really cool because it's set up with zones. So there's a middle target flag, and then there's these various poles on the outer side that would represent an accurate shot. Well, the moment that zone spread out for me as an N, it gave me more options, more flexibility in arriving at a successful shot, and that boosted my athleticism. So I was able to just get into a creative picture and now allow my body to respond more. And going to the course, that was instrumental. Your buddy Michael Leonard at Wicked Smart Golf, when he got introduced to this, he went into tournament play and hit 28 out of 28 fairways with his driver, and he was struggling before applying that concept. He couldn't do aim small, miss small either. But what happens to me as an N when I'm struggling? Of course, I get more precise. I narrow down my focus. I get more linear, more rigid. I'm stuck into details. And what's happening to that sensing player when they're getting stressed? They're getting away from these simple steps that produce repeatable results, and their focus broadens. So now instead of getting specific, now they're starting to pick up hazards out there. Like, oh man, I never even noticed that red stake out there. What if I hit it out there? And their focus starts speculating and jumping into possibilities and outcomes. And that's taking them away from those practical actions. And so this is just one of the applications with sensing and intuition, but it really plays a huge role. What's helpful in understanding what your dominant style is? Well, now we can start relating to players that are more aligned with us. And an easy parallel is if you play a draw, why would you want to look up instruction on how to play a cut? You'd want to be maximizing the effectiveness of your natural draw. And same thing with focus. Now that I know I'm an intuitive golfer, I can appreciate those details, and I need to bring those in at times to help fill in gaps and work on those. But I got to stay much more to my vision and my goal and some of the bigger picture. It keeps me more productive in practice and out on the course. And vice versa, the guy I caddy for, we need to stay more to the day-to-day details, work in our steps. And when we're working our steps, it's taking us to a really good, likely outcome. So sorry to get a little long-winded, but that's how our focus is coming into play. And our next letter that we're looking at is our decision-making. So again, like our focus, we have different ways we arrive at decisions. And even if we arrived at decisions from different facets, we're coming at it from the same decision, we're coming at it from totally different ways. And our letters here would be thinking and feeling. So we have thinkers. Everybody has thoughts and cognition. I should just start with that premise. But what thinking is more of the relying on your emotion or analytical intelligence. So when making decisions, you trust a lot more of the numbers, logical, analytical processes, looking at pros and cons, objectively analyzing situations, right? So impersonal, objective, analytical, a lot more heady, trusting numbers. This is the decade players out on the golf course, right? Decade is amazing at breaking down those numbers, giving you the most logical, efficient way of getting to that goal. And it's all numbers based. So my guy who I caddy for loves that. I mean, I like it because it helps me to inform my decisions, but I'm a feeler, number one, primary. And for me as a feeling player, I trust a lot more of my emotional intelligence, and I'm a lot more subjective in my decision making. So what does that mean? I trust a lot more of my state and my confidence level much more than the numbers. And if I go against my emotions and say, wow, I know in decade this is the highest percentage shot, but in my gut, I'm not feeling good with that play and I go against it, it is a garbage shot every time. And I go, why did I hit that? It never felt right. But learning to use emotional intelligence, feelers are trusting more of their intrinsic style as a player. They wanting to trust it. Sevi was like a great example of this, I believe. I mean, he was so creative and trusting what he could do, and his confidence levels in situations, he'd be exemplary of this. But what happens in stress? Again, we get all off. So on the course, me as a feeling player, instead of trusting my gut, what my confidence is telling, putting clubs in the hand that feel good, I go into overanalysis, paralysis by analysis. I start overanalyzing things. I'm breaking it down like this, and it takes me into getting really, really critical. And for the thinking players, they move away from that logic that grounds them, Sean, and now they're getting emotional, or they're getting impatient and frustrated because they're not getting the results. And now this emotion is starting to lead to some illogical or impractical decisions, or they may be governed by what other people may be doing. So they might start now looking at people in the group and going, oh, he's hitting that. Maybe I should hit this. And now that's starting to become a big influential factor. So these two things right there are powerful. And simple wrap up. Last one is just how we structure out our goals, judging and perceiving. We have planners and we have explorers. Judges work really good with a methodical plan. They get off when they don't have a plan, or they get too like rigid to it. And now they're completely overloaded and overstressed, and they forget to take care of themselves. Perceivers, they're the floaters. They work really good though whenever they have inspiration or a deadline, and they're much more pressure prompted into action. So they need a little bit more inspiration, but when they're inspired or under pressure, they're the ones that can really get into the moment, dive in and be productive in the chaos.
Yeah.
So lots of caffeine today, Sean, and for everybody listening. So thank you. I warned you, you could interrupt me and at any time.
No, mate, I just think every time I hear you talk and just go into it, one, I can just see how passionate you are. And two, I can just see how much you've looked and observed and just picked up all of this information from seeing how it's actually played out with so many people. Because I'm not sure actually how many people you've coached individually or through the programs with the coaches that you train to then go and, build their own coaching book. But I'm assuming it's in the thousands and tens of thousands now that you've actually touched and have seen results from. So you're speaking from a place of like knowing that this shit actually works, essentially. So I love it. Go all day if you want to. I'm sure the listeners love it too.
Well, it's not a matter of if it works. It does work, and it's based on really simple science. And what has eluded us is these subtle stressors. So why has this gone over the radar of everybody? I mean, if you just do even a simple Google search on stress and its effects on your movement, you'll see right away. Very real world situation to show you how it affects your movement. Imagine a balance beam, right? You have one of your clients at your gym, put a balance beam on the ground. It's not just level, have them walk across it. Super confident. They're going to dance across it, do whatever, talk, chew gum, all this stuff. Now raise it about 6 feet off the ground. Same beat. Well, still not that big of a consequence, right? So you still be moving across it fairly confident and not really too worried, but a little bit more cautious, right? Because, hey, if you fall off from 6 feet, you might roll your ankle, you might have a little bit of a consequence. That's kind of like your average golfer going from the range, now we're going to the course. And now we have a little bit of restriction. Tournament plays like taking the same beam and now putting it across a busy street, across 2 buildings, and say, walk across the beam. And on the ground, you were comfortable, right? But you get into that situation. Now, what happens to the movement? The stress, the threat of the consequence, we have cortisol, our movement changes. We get back to the ground, movement returns right back to normal. What's happening in golf is we have 2 types of stressors that we are encountering. We have acute stress. This is the obvious stuff. First tee nerves, you got a big outing with your company, and your boss is there watching you. Like, yeah, that's a big moment for the average golfer. It could be getting called into your first real tournament as a pro. We know that these are big moments. You're on the cut line. You got to make the putt. You got to make this process happen. These are all acute. Your heart's beating. You know it's there. You know you have to attend to it the best of your ability. But that isn't the thing that's creating a lot of the inconsistencies and problems in performance. It's the subtle stress. And why I'm so passionate and got into this so much is I've watched so many great golfers have the athleticism, the talent, and swing, and then they're leaving the golf course in tournaments frustrated and feeling as if they're underperforming. It's like just leaving stuff out there. And it's like you put in all this work. I want you to have the biggest breakthroughs and fulfillment and satisfaction from all that. And it's actually these subtle stressors that are the biggest culprit. So again, you're a sensing player. Let's just put in real world situation. You're on the range. You have your alignment rod set up so you don't have to worry about your target. You know you're aimed right. And your coach is giving you one simple move to be working on in your swing. Let's say you're just feeling a smooth transition or releasing the club, whatever it might be. You have one thing in mind, target's taken care of, and you're flushing it. Yet over the years, you've been indoctrinated to say now that you've left the practice tee and you get to that first tee, it's all about target. Get engaged in the target, forget completely about your swing. Well, that's a death move for a sensing player. And the majority of tour pros don't do that. Majority of the world are sensing players. So here you get to the tee, you're hitting it really good. Now you're worrying about your target. Well, that's invoking a different now function of your mind. That's your intuition. That by itself is creating stress. So now we're going to see the swing impaired on some level. So if it's just a little bit, maybe you blocked it. If it's a lot, we might see that really big miss and it sets up a change. And we go, what happened? I'm just striping it here and I get to the tee. Is there something wrong with me? Is there a challenge with me as a player? Why can't I do that? And we watch the self-esteem go down. It has nothing to do with it. They can't do it. All they're doing is having a subtle shift. And that subtle shift is having such a big consequence on their performance. So, for example, the guy I worked with, he was indoctrinated to be target. He is a strong sensing player. It's his number one mode of operating. It wasn't until we took the target away till he really just started unleashing his precision. In fact, we did it at the wedge range at Bender's. I stood in front of him. I didn't even let him look at it. He has his alignment rod, and he was hitting 4x4 blocks from 60, 80, and 100 out within 5 balls, not even looking at the target with his wedges. Then we went to the golf course. We played 9 holes, and I didn't let him engage a target at all. Just know you're aimed right. I let him align his alignment rod and just get into his move. He had every fairway, every green. Average proximity, honest to God, was like 9 feet, and he cruised to 5 under. Cruised. Now, we then go and put the focus band on him, put him back in the same situation, engage the target. Focus band for that player is going red. It's invoking more cognitive activity, stress. Both are counterproductive. It's a subtle shift to say, like, okay, because of the way your brain is wired, it's okay to be in one singular move. Now, if you're thinking of 2, 3, 4 things as a sensor, that's too many. 2 is too many. But one practical action is the most effective way for your brain to relax, and it gives you that practical action. Like if I'm aimed right and I do this, that result has to happen. Now, again, for an N, I have to learn that I have to trust that the work I've done on the range is there. And I need to engage my mind into my end goal for the shot. And if I engage my mind into the end goal, my body will actually work better and I'll have the best of my swing come forward. But again, if nobody tells you this is your strength, this is what you did every single time you played awesome on the course, and this is what comes up, it just flies under our radar because we just don't even think to look there. Same with just the talking aspects or being more internal. Introverts, I've talked to so many players that said, I just felt guilty like not going out and trying to socialize. Or parents would say, well, why aren't you out? You're not having any fun. You're not talking to any of the kids. But the introverted kid doesn't want to talk. That's actually taken away from some of their focus. That's a generalization. Introverts still talk and socialize. But even if you're an introvert out here, you're playing with your buddies. Notice that like after a while, you're going to start leaking energy. You're going to start getting tired from the socialization. It's going to take away from that shot process. And if that's the case, now you got to go and carve some individual time to kind of recenter and regroup. Or conversely, you have the chatty little kid who's out there on the course. Parents are like, you're not focusing because you're talking too much. You're just interacting too much. Are you taking this seriously? Of course they are. That's them engaging their brain. That's them keeping themselves relaxed, letting their thoughts process work more effectively. And so permission to go, wow, this is actually what I do really good. And once we start uprooting this subtle stress and we start building this into the shot process, everybody, regardless of where you're at in your game, you will see big improvements. Going back to your first question, is it mental or physical? The mental brings out your physical. Why? Because if you're in stress, regardless if you shoot a consistently around a 90 or you're always breaking par, stress is still the biggest thing that's going to impair your performance. Everybody is dealing with this. So if you want to break 80 quicker, let's eliminate stress. You want to win a golf tournament as a professional, you got to wipe out that stress. And that allows us to get the most out of where we're at physically, day in and day out. And that's why we get lower scoring variance. We have better productivity. And we feel really satisfied at the end of the round because we're competing. We're not getting in our way and self-defeating through the round.
Yeah. It's so good. It's just great examples as well, because as a dad, and I know many clients are dads, I don't want to be that dad, taking my son out. At the moment, he's loving it. Like I take him down to the local club here in the Cayman Islands. It's called North Sound Golf Club. I just stick him down with a couple of balls. He's got an 8-iron, a pitching wedge, and a putter, and he'll watch me. Like he'll just stand there and he'll watch me. And the drill that I've been using lately is just to chip 5 balls with a pitching wedge or a lob wedge or something. I'll just chip them and then see how many up and downs I could make by putting out those 5 balls. And I'll do it 10 times, and I'll give myself a percentage, and I'll just try and beat that percentage. I'm glad to always calculate it when you've got a 4-year-old, running around the course and trying to get him not jump in the dam and stuff. But that's my little game, and he'll copy that. And then I'll go over to him and I'll say, "Would you like me to give you a little tip?" And he's like, "No," like does his own thing. I'm like, "Cool." I just stay away from it. Just let him go about his own processes. I watch and mimic and that sort of thing. So I don't want to, as he progresses into actually playing on the course, be, trying to talk to him too much or getting him to not talk if he's talking or those sorts of things. So I think it's going to be a really valuable asset to have, is to understand what his is once he gets to an age where we can play on the course. I know that you've just released a new kids, or just about to release a new kids program or protocol. Did you want to go into that, since we're on the topic of kids now, and let us know what it's all about, what sort of age kids you can start it with, and just give us a little rundown of it.
Sure. Yeah, we're actually in the final tail end of getting ready to release it here soon in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. We're still debating on whether we're doing an online format or if we're going to put it into a workbook type of format so they can just journal right along. But yeah, we're really passionate about helping parents and juniors. I mean, obviously parents want to get the best out of the kids. However, none of us really been educated. There's 15 other ways of viewing the world, and our kid may or may not align with all of our personality features. And understanding how to best communicate or understand how to frame our message to get the best out of our child is something that I think is really, really important. As well as teaching your kid, one, it's great to be you. This key of success to get into the zone is authenticity, learning to be yourself. I mean, you don't see Tiger and everybody trying to emulate or be somebody else. It's them being very self-aware and developing their gifts, cultivating who they are. And I think that's the greatest gift that we can give out to the youth. What we're doing right now with our program is it's a program that builds a foundational mindset or mental model or mental development framework for people. So we teach children and young teens the transformational self-talk keys. So how do you better self-communicate? What words do we want to uproot from our language? And this is equally relevant for all the adults listening too. So hopefully, covertly, we're going to get the parents to be getting educated simultaneously. So we get them to uproot words like don't, hope, if, shoulds, these negative programming words that really get in the way and impact performance. We show them how to reframe their language so that they can be learning to take control of it and really ignite their inner communication. And for everybody listening, like self-talk, if you're out there, whether you're pursuing fitness goals, whether you're pursuing golf goals, your self-talk is so vital. And if you have kids listening right now, I just highly encourage you, get them, and yourself included, create a self-talk script of some of the goals or qualities of things that you're aspiring to want to be. I was taught this when I was in my late teens. I had this one that was all about the qualities of the type of business person and professional I wanted to be. And this thing is so ingrained in my mind, Sean, I could get up right now and do the whole thing. It's made such an impact. So I'd encourage people, write something that's like 75 to 100 words, or get your kids there talking about them being confident, performing under pressure, believing in themselves. And then every morning and every night while you're brushing their teeth, or they're brushing their teeth, they should be reciting this to themselves in the mirror. If you don't want to go to the extent of doing the self-talk, you can use one of the most powerful affirmations, and you teach them, I love you. And you tell them, I love you, looking them dead in the eyes 10 times after you brush your teeth. It will transform your brain in a very, very short period of time. But if you have goals, the way you want to compete on the course, the way you want to be bringing it in your fitness all the time, the mornings and nights in those first 20 minutes are the time to be really driving it into your brain. And this is what we want to get ingrained into all of our youth. Because in those first 20 and last 20 minutes of your day as adults, we're basically in self-hypnosis. They are the most receptive times in our day where our brains will be receiving and taking in information from us. It has the less resistance and the less filtering. Kids, they don't have that filter right now. So ingraining positive self-talk is such a really important thing to do early on, because that is the molding clay. It's activating our superpower of our brain, neuroplasticity. For kids, it can happen a lot quicker. For adults, it takes a little longer, but it's not about feeling good. It's about molding the brain that you want. Then we introduce MGT. We teach them their strengths. We teach them about their stressors. And then we go into igniting progress. You know, so many people want really big gains and really big moments to indicate success, but real success is incremental. And so we teach them the science about incremental improvements on how to be a 1%er and keep creating and stacking 1% gains, as well as committing to be that 1% mentality-wise, as far as what we're holding ourselves to and being one of those positive leaders in the world. We teach visualization strategies, and then also some empowering habits, such as mindfulness and meditation, and then also how to use visualization to really enhance your life and achieve a lot more of your goals. And so we built this nice framework. It's going to release out. There's 5 lessons in each one. Each lesson has activities. And we also have a complementary or supplementary, I don't know, parent guide that goes with it. So what's really cool, as your kids work through the activities, you'll have things that are discussion questions and starters and ways to reinforce the lessons throughout the week and how to reinforce that with your kids. So we're hoping to make like a nice whole team dynamic. So we know these mental performance strategies and a nice foundation to be building on for our life.
Yeah, amazing. What are some examples of ones that you've used with kids in the past, like the 75 to 100 words? Like, you don't have to remember every single one, but what's an example of that? Like, what could someone
I
say
might
in
be
that?
able to just bring one up here real quick. We
So,
have a
like,
9-year-old that I work with. She's pretty special. She's won some mega events, some world championships. Hers is right
wow,
here. So,
as a 9-year-old,
okay. So
amazing.
here is her exact script. And she's an ISTJ. For anybody listening, that's an ISTJ. I won't say her name, but here's what our morning script is. Good morning. And she says her name. Today is another great day to be my best self. I am strong, focused, and ready for whatever comes my way. I am healthy and feel great. Every day I get better and better, both in life and in golf. I fuel my body with good food, and I have the energy and strength for the day ahead. I am thankful for my family who supports and loves me. I am so happy. And then there's an instruction to smile. I am a dedicated and hardworking student and golfer, approaching my day with a positive attitude and readiness to learn. I am a world champion because of my effort, focus, and determination. I am grateful for my talents and the opportunities I have. I visualize myself hitting perfect shots and enjoying every moment on the course and being my very best. I trust my skills and my training. I am ready for any challenge. I am capable, intelligent, and kind, and I believe in myself. Every day is a new chance for me to improve and grow. I will face challenges with courage and overcome them with grace. Today I give my best effort in all I do, and I really enjoy my journey too. I'm proud of who I am and excited for my future. I can do anything. So it's a little longer.
Wow.
We took some time, we worked on it, but these are the types of things. So imagine we help our children to develop a script like this. And we have examples. And hey, if you have children, I promise, send me an email, connect with me on my site, and I will help you prepare some self-talk scripts. So I would be happy to help with that. Imagine your child having this type of programming every day, and they're believing it, and it's shaping the qualities of the type of child and person they are becoming. Every day saying, hey, I have challenges. I'm facing it with courage and approaching it with grace. I believe in myself. My success is coming from my efforts and my dedication. I mean, if these become core belief systems of your child, of the youth, I mean, what does this start creating? We're introducing gratitude and appreciation. It's not, hey, I have a great golf swing. No, we're We're teaching them about praising their effort, that they have the drive, the capabilities to achieve the things that they want to in their life. This is activating the neuroplasticity. We can do it as adults, but adults, what we do is we just start becoming victims instead of taking charge. It takes more work as an adult because we now have filtering systems with that self-image, but drive it in every day. Drive it in. And what happens is our brain starts lowering that resistance and the neuroplasticity starts happening. And we start molding our mind because our self-talk is doing more than feel good. What it's doing is it's creating more neurons that fire together. There's a principle called Hebbian learning, which is when neurons that fire together, wire together, and you're building a network there. And then as you're visualizing these things is what she's doing as she's saying it. The self-talk creates a visualization. I'm determined. I can do this. Well, the mind starts picturing this. This is creating alienation of the mind, the mailing that's like coding and insulating these neural pathways. It's making it go faster and faster. These things are going to become go-to thinking for her. What's going to be at the core whenever she's faced with a stressful situation, she's going to say, I can do it. And it's believable because of this daily visualizing through the self-talk. And then that's activating the neuroplasticity, shaping the self-image, which will change how she behaves, what she does, how confident she is, what type of information she's going to accept. And so it's just so powerful to take the time, cultivate what you want, these qualities that are going to bring forth the success in whatever endeavor you decide to take on.
Yeah, and I can imagine in her situation as well, being a world champion, this specific example, there'd be newspaper articles, news articles, all of this stuff talking about, child prodigy this, child prodigy that, and, she's just overnight become this amazing golfer and blah, blah, blah. Whereas like when some people hear that, and I think a lot of people who maybe from our generation or earlier would have heard that and they just think they're amazing, they have one thing that proves them wrong and they just crumble because they don't have that innate self-belief the whole way through. They've just been told. John McEnroe was a big one, I think, of
well, that fixed mindset, right? I think that Carol Dweck, I believe it was, who wrote that book, and she was pegging a lot of that.
Like if your traits or abilities are innate rather than malleable, you have a fixed or a growth mindset. So essentially this is like helping children to develop a growth mindset in some way, but also giving them ammunition for when people say certain things like that, their traits are fixed or they're just talented or whatever. She's saying like, no, I am actually, or she's not saying no. She believes in herself and she knows in herself that the reason she's getting good is because she's saying this every day and because she goes and practices golf or goes and practices, being kind to others or saying I love you to her family or whatever those things might be. So I love it. I can't wait to start doing this sort of stuff with my son.
One thing that I've learned is I with all my athletes, I praise effort. It's really what I praise. They're all talented in their own ways, and I believe with the right effort, then we can overcome a lot of things. But that's always just been my thing, and that's where I'm trying to keep everybody who's especially a young phenom into effort, into why that's happening. It isn't just because you've been gifted this. No, you've cultivated these gifts. It's through effort and determination, and that is worthy of praise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that
100%.
kind of propels people forward, especially when things get a little more challenging.
Yeah, and the spotlight, and with social media and stuff these days as well, like I don't think we quite understand the challenges that kids are going to face because they're going to be using it all of the time, and there's going to be tens of thousands of people that don't believe in their journey, their mission, their abilities, whatever it might be, and they're always the ones. Like even for me, having a fairly small social media following, you still get the comments of people saying all these different things that they would never say to your face.
Right.
But the social media landscape can just magnify that. And I think children are going to be or already are susceptible to some of those things, but this gives them some ammunition to not care so much what others are saying because they believe it themselves. Like they know that that's their values and everything.
And it's a daily process, but here's the thing. It's not a matter of if it will work, it will. It's just about being consistent. We had a young man, his name is John. He's been doing this since he was in 7th grade. This year, he qualified for tour, first run through Q School. He won in D1 and achieved all of his goals. He goes, John, this is amazing. He said, I've been doing this since I've been in 7th grade. Here I am. I'm here. He's like, and he overcame a double bogey with a couple holes left to play. to battle back from, he was on the above the cut line, fell below it, and then came back and rallied after a double. And he goes, it was all based off my self-talk and what I was visualizing all those years, that I can overcome whatever and finish out successfully. And he was this slayer. He's like, I wish everybody would just do this. Tom Brady said the same thing in his Hall of Fame speech. He goes, success isn't as hard. It's just about consistency and doing those little things that others won't on a day in and day out basis. And this is one of those things that the greats do. Michael Phelps was taught to do it every time he walked through doorways. He had to say one positive thing about himself. And you can imagine if you give it a try, you walk through a lot of doorways. And again, he just did it. He did it. Look at what that's transpired in his game or his swimming career. It's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. I'm not sure how his golf game is. I don't think his golf game matches his gold medals in swimming. I've seen his swing. It's a bit different.
Yeah, a little different. Yeah.
Mate, that's amazing. I think that's a great note to end it on. Where do you want to send people to devour some more of your content, hear more of you talking, do the self-assessment and stuff like this?
Yeah, you can find a lot of it at mentalgolftype.com. There's a blog with a bunch of articles. I have a bunch of podcasts there if you want to deep dive into more conversations like this. Yeah, mentalgolftype.com. It has all the information. You can follow us on the socials. I'm hit or miss with my activity level, I have to admit, but you can follow us at Mental Golf Type at Instagram and on YouTube, and drop us a message. We're happy to hear from you and answer all your questions.
Yeah, don't worry. You'll see a few people start following and liking your stuff from once I post this up in some sort of short form clip and we collaborate on it. So people always tend to follow along from there. So mate, thanks again, obviously, for coming back on again. Really appreciate your time. I just love hearing, and I know that so many of the people listening would love hearing exactly what it is you have to say and just your mission and vision with this Mental Golf Type. So thanks so much, and we'll have to organize a round 3 in another maybe 6 or 12 months time, see where we're both at in the world.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.